Hello everyone and welcome to another video. If you're looking for a full-size wireless mechanical keyboard, you'll quickly realize that you don't have that many options. You'll also quickly realize that most of the market is dominated by Logitech. I've been using the G915 for the last 3 years or so, and today I have their latest and greatest, which is the G915 X. So let's check it out. It currently sells for 330 Canadian dollars, I know, not the cheapest, on Logitech.com, but they offer a 15% discount as well as a student discount. You have two color options, white and black. The regular G915 that I've been using for the last 3 years is in black, so for this one I went for the white. And in terms of the switches, we have 3 options: tactile, linear and clicky. Tactile is essentially brown switches, linear is red, and clicky is white. I'm usually a fan of tactile switches since they aren't as loud as clicky switches while still offering some feedback. Logitech uses GL switches, which are co-developed with this company that I can't really pronounce, so I'm just not gonna do it, but here it is on the screen. Let's start with the unboxing experience. In the box, aside from the keyboard, you get a USB-C cable, a USB-C to USB-A adapter, as well as some documentation. I love the fact that Logitech finally made the switch to USB-C. I've been waiting for that for a very long time. The regular G915 that I have has a micro USB port, so I could not be happier about this. That being said, we lost the braided cable and we now just get a regular cable, but to me this is fine. The USB-C to USB-A adapter is nice if you're low on USB ports on your computer. What this essentially does is that it converts a USB-C male to a USB-A female, so you can use the same cable to charge your keyboard and also plug the receiver in. I know that the white color is quite hard to keep clean, but I'd be lying if I said this didn't look phenomenal. It just looks much cleaner and much more premium compared to the black. To each their own though. Regardless of what color you go for, the G915 looks great. It's all metal on top with rounded edges on the side, which really shows attention to detail. It looks much less gamery compared to some of the other mechanical keyboards out there, which works in my favor since I also use this keyboard for work. The black would have been even better for that, but that was a compromise that I was willing to make. The legend is quite legible, and they went for a larger font compared to the G915. The keys themselves are also larger than they were on the G915. Unfortunately, this means that the keycaps on the G915 X won't fit the G915 and vice versa. The switches themselves are different as well. The material quality is also great, especially on the places that you frequently touch. The base is metal on top, and the keycaps have this gritty surface which really feels nice when you're typing at full speed. The bottom side of the keyboard is all plastic, but this is kinda understandable since there is virtually no flex to the keyboard. I'm assuming that the decision to go for plastic on the bottom of the keyboard also has something to do with weight, since this keyboard weighs more than a kilo. It's a full-size keyboard with almost no surprises. Everything is where you would expect them to be, except for the right Windows key. That one's been replaced with a function key, which controls the memory settings. There are 9 customizable keys, G1 to G9. The keys on the side take some time to get used to, but at least they do nothing by default. The G613, on the other hand, had its G keys bound to the F keys by default, and that was really annoying, especially if you were working on a device on which you couldn't install the G hub. I'm glad these keys do nothing by default. The buttons on top, G6 to G9, are harder to reach in daily use or when you're gaming. Those are pretty good for when I'm working and I need to run a long command that I don't want to memorize. In fact, those buttons are the only obvious difference between the G915 and the G915 X. The regular G915 used those buttons for the onboard memory settings. Otherwise, we have the regular buttons to toggle Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, the game mode, as well as to change the keyboard backlight brightness. We also have multimedia buttons on the side of the keyboard, as well as a volume slider. The volume slider seems to require a little bit more force compared to the G915, which is a good thing. I have a G915 TKL that I bought used, and that one in particular has a horrible slider that doesn't really work anymore since it became too loose. And with that, let's start using this keyboard. As it's often the case with Logitech products, this one requires that you download the G-Hub application to take full advantage of this keyboard. Fortunately, the G-Hub has gotten a lot better over the years, so I no longer consider it a nuisance. We'll start with the wireless mode that uses the Lightspeed receiver. I like that it's white to match the overall aesthetics, and honestly, I'm pleasantly surprised with how well these wireless peripherals work. You can apparently have one Lightspeed receiver communicating with two wireless devices, but I haven't tried this since I'm kinda afraid it might affect performance. Compared to the G915, there is definitely more feedback coming from these tactile switches. I say this a lot when it comes to keyboards, but I really enjoy typing on this keyboard. The fact that there is more space between the keys also comes in handy when you're typing up a document. The linear switches also got quieter, but I feel like they also got a bit mushier. Once again, to each their own, but I suggest you give every single switch type a shot before committing to one. The keys seem to be much more stable compared to the G915. Trying them out one after the other, you can really feel the difference. What I don't like in my daily use is the lack of a right Windows key. I'm left-handed, so whenever I want to use the Windows key, I either need to use my other hand or just let go of the mouse and use my left hand. This isn't a huge deal, but I'd love to be able to change what the function key does as well. Speaking of setting what keys do, let's have a look at the G-Hub. First and foremost, the RGB settings, which I find to be underwhelming. You have the classic settings like the color wave, the color cycle, and ripple. You can also fully customize the color on each key, and there are some other presets as well. I just wish I could combine two presets together. I'd like to be able to have color wave as my background and also have ripple enabled. This is something you can do on some other keyboards, but unfortunately the Logitech G-Hub just doesn't allow you to do this. This is something I can live without though. For what it's worth, the RGB on this keyboard gets really bright, and combined with the white color, it looks really good. All this RGB and there is no numlock indicator though. At least give me the option to bind it to the numlock key. That way, I would have the light for numlock off when it's disabled, and when enabled, the light would come on. Where this keyboard shines are the assignments and the game mode. Under assignments, you can set different shortcuts and assignments for different apps, which is just fantastic. I can use the G5 key to save my project in Premiere, and also use it to commit my changes on VS Code. I can also disable certain keys when certain applications are open. Game mode essentially does the same thing, but there's a dedicated key for it on the keyboard. It also automatically disables the Windows and right-click keys. However, the G-Hub app does get confused every now and then when you change between apps too quickly. And to overcome this, you would have to reselect the app for which you have the assignments. It works fine most of the time, but this is still something that Logitech could and should improve on. Gaming on this keyboard does not disappoint. The fact that the keycaps are larger compared to the G915 comes in handy, since you don't accidentally end up hitting the wrong key. I also can't notice any latency when gaming on this keyboard, but I definitely wouldn't say no to a different texture on the WASD keys. I haven't come across any range issues under normal use. The furthest I can get away from my computer is around 5 meters, and even at that distance, I did not notice any issues. The only time I had connection drops was when I had a USB drive connected right above the receiver. I guess it was just blocking the signals or the transmission in some way, but the second I unplugged it, everything went back to normal. Otherwise, I haven't come across any issues. You can also just plug in the keyboard and use it as a wired keyboard. This is something I only do when I want to charge the keyboard, and I do this 5 to 10 minutes a day, That way I don't have to charge any other time. Speaking of charging and the battery life, the rated battery life is 36 hours with the RGB set to 100%, and with the RGB set to 0%, that's to say when the RGB is off, the rated battery life is 800 hours. This is not bad at all, and it charges rather quickly, so if you do what I do, that is to charge 5 to 10 minutes a day, you will never need to charge any other time. Lastly, let's check out the Bluetooth connection. Unlike some more portable keyboards, this one does not have multi-device pairing, so it can only pair with one device over Bluetooth. Once paired, you'll quickly notice that the polling rate isn't the same as Lightspeed or wired connection. This is unfortunately a limitation caused by Bluetooth itself, and there is nothing that Logitech can do to improve on this. It might not be the best protocol for gaming, but for daily use and typing documents, it's completely serviceable. The G-Hub still works when you connect the keyboard via Bluetooth, and this is especially useful if you're using this with a device that has no USB-A ports. Logitech offers a 2-year warranty on these keyboards, and speaking from personal experience, they seem to be standing behind their products. I've had them replace my G903 mouse and the keycaps for my G915 over the years, so at least from personal experience, I can tell that their warranty is legit. Overall, I know that this keyboard is expensive, it's among the most expensive mainstream keyboards on the market, but at this price point, it offers pretty much everything you could ask from a keyboard. If you're like me and you spend more than 8 hours using the same keyboard both for gaming, work, and casual browsing, this is something you want to splurge on. And that's exactly what I did. I bought one of the most expensive mainstream keyboards on the market, and honestly, it hasn't disappointed me. I'm very happy with this, and if you're in a similar situation as me, I strongly suggest that you get the G915 X. Thank you so much for watching. Please consider liking this video, checking out my other videos, and subscribing to my channel. Take care.